Hostile.
This review is brought to you by Gamefly. All right, PS4 games, here we go. Now, the signature launch title from Sony is, without a doubt, Killzone Shadow Fall, the fourth console title from Guerrilla Games in Holland. Launch titles are a funny thing, as they carry more baggage than games that come out a year or many years later because they help define the system and early adoption of a console when the system is at the most expensive. So I guess this is the closest I'll ever come to experiencing a debutante ball. And in one respect, Killzone makes for a good date. That's a lot of pretty. Man, that is a lot of pretty. It's like someone went to the pretty store and bought everything and then performed a smash and grab at the beautiful warehouse. Killzone Shadow Fall is an understandable choice for the launch of the PlayStation 4. Guerrilla Games are no stranger to technical prowess in their visuals, and Shadow Fall handily demonstrates the performance of the PlayStation 4 in this bonanza of fidelity, depth of field, and particle effects. Even more impressive is what is depicted. In an essential change to the visually dour monochrome of the previous games, Shadowfall is awash in color, sunlight, and architecture that is a pleasant contrast to the destroyed ugly that had become so attached to the series. Even when the game finds itself in a setting that is familiar to shooters, large hangars, spaceships, there's an undeniable novelty to how it all looks, and when it comes to slums and office towers, there is a perceptible sense of awe.
I'm gonna look out for you. I need you to do the same for me, okay?
But processing power can't help writing, and Killzone Shadow Fall, despite its visual variety, is one very pretty, very clunky tale. Taking place decades after the events of Killzone 3, where Helgen is obliterated in near-complete genocide by the Vectans, those that survived were given part of the Vectan planet, separated by a big wall. The game begins with tensions quite high between the two peoples as you play Lucas Kellen, a Shadowfall agent working for a commander who has no interest in sharing his homeland with their former adversaries. The simmering tensions between the peoples heat up, and the presence of a new genocidal weapon is discovered that both factions race in battle to control and wipe out the other. There's aspects of this story that are interesting, especially the invoking of the Cold War and the current issues between Israel and Palestine, to say nothing of it just being an escapist action yarn. But despite the visual sweep of helicopters, exploding buildings, and trains, there's no thrill in this tale. Even when moments of surprise or awe occur, it's so familiar, so telegraphed, that it's only remarkable that it hasn't happened already. Killzone has always tried to convey an ambivalence about war and the warring sides in their fiction, but the concept that aggression begets retribution in an endless cycle is laid on so thick here that it has the philosophical resonance of the Butter Battle book, with less of the emotional weight. When it comes to game design, Killzone fares better than its predecessors. Instead of starting at 11 and screaming at the player throughout, Killzone Shadow Fall has a sense of pace that makes the action feel less obligatory and gives the player a chance to take in the aesthetics. Unfortunately, it's at its best when you are just traversing the environment. Attempts at puzzles like find the insertion object and jump to insert the device are astonishingly banal, and other sequences where you glide or base jump and avoid objects feels ripped from a 2002 PlayStation 2 game with their painful trial and error structure. Additionally, in an effort to establish a better sense of pace, some levels focus on activities and objectives that de-emphasize combat, such as a stealth section where you're lacking many of your technical assets, and another in a destroyed city, traversing some challenging geography. While interesting in how they break up the flow of the game, they come across more as a gameplay exercise than anything compelling. Where experimentation does win out in Shadowfall is in levels that are in a large open area, like this forest or the Helgen slums. The sense of place and the interesting and varied opportunities for traversal keep the sequences engaging and enjoyably replayable after death. Unfortunately, they just don't happen frequently enough throughout the game.
What are you doing?
Take no chances.
The combat is, unsurprisingly, when Shadowfall is at its best. Challenging and visceral, but most of all, varied. Vacillating from encounters in small spaces to many enemies in a large space and scattered confrontations across an open map, Killzone Shadow Fall escapes the leaden sameness in combat that weighed down the previous titles. The AI strikes an effective balance between wanting to preserve their life and take away yours. And the enemy types, while not vast, are grouped together very cleverly, forcing snap prioritization in the heat of battle. The challenge presented in combat is significant enough that 2 additional features are added to the game. A scanner that identifies enemies behind cover in your immediate vicinity, which, given the frequency that soldiers move around, is essential. More significant is the Owl, a floating mechanical buddy that is best described as making squad commands less annoying. The Owl can attack, stun enemies, and bring down their shields with an EMP blast, provide a shield or a zip line. Additionally, it can revive you if you have the adrenaline packs, assuming it isn't out of commission in a recharge state. The Owl is quite clever in its implementation. It's great to get enemies out of cover, to offer a distraction to soldiers so you can take them down. This balances against your inability to take many bullets and the nasty aggression of the enemy AI, but it still allows the game to maintain the requisite tension throughout the combat and keep you moving around the play space. A side benefit to the Owl is how well it demonstrates the touchpad on the PS4 controller. You swipe your finger in the direction of the Owl function you want to use. The ease of this feature was remarkable. Very light gestures were read, and read immediately. Also, where the pad is in relation to the sticks made this fast and comfortable. I honestly would prefer to switch weapons, gadgets, whatever this way in any game going forward. The combat, while strong, does suffer over time from becoming less and less distinct. The last third of the game had fewer and fewer moments where I felt careful thought had been put into the encounters, and it descended mainly into holding positions against waves of enemies in spaces of varying sizes. And there's a late game boss battle that is so confounding, I'm not sure how I beat it.
I'm telling you, it's messed up down there. You go in, you're not getting out.
For all the improvements in Shadow Fall, it still falls victim to what plagues shooters weak on story. No way to keep the combat fresh enough to hold your attention in lieu of seeing what happens next. Despite some valiant, but not always effective efforts to broaden the range of what a Killzone game entails.
We'll be okay once we get to the other side of the wall. Come on.
The multiplayer in Killzone Shadow Fall is a curious beast. The combat actually feels better than in the single player and makes a clear case for the design decisions of the PlayStation 4 controller. Simply put, it just feels good, which is due in no insignificant part to the rock-solid frame rate. Problem is, it just feels bloodless. The maps are visually impressive, but the map layouts, despite some interesting routes for traversal, couldn't draw players together for those moments of surprise and invention. Despite the remarkably fungible nature of Warzone, allowing those maps to be altered with particular rules and restrictions, there is never a moment that had that sense of thrill. Multiplayer is predicated on having the player want to experience the same map, same game mode repeatedly. But after a couple of matches, I knew what I was playing was made with the utmost skill, but there was no burning desire to get back into the action. As competent as everything is on screen, this is multiplayer without spark, and unfortunately cannot complement the issues in the single-player campaign. Killzone Shadow Fall succeeds where all launch games should. It's eye-popping and sumptuous in its visuals, but despite some thoughtful tweaks to the game design, the results fall short of their intentions. For all the polychromatic bombast on display, drawing us into the next generation of gaming, it obscures an uncertainty with what the future is supposed to be, and that we will have a little longer before settling on its definition. Killzone Shadow Fall gets a 3 out of 5. All right, there you go. Killzone Shadow Fall. Obviously, there's another exclusive to the PlayStation 4 that's launching, and that is Knack. Please check out Tara Long's review. You should find it quite a contrast in tone between the two games. But with that, let's take a moment to thank our sponsor, GameFly. GameFly is the largest online video game rental service, offering more than 8,000 new and classic titles across all consoles and handhelds. Plans start at just $15.95 per month, and you can keep your games for as long as you like. Once you're done playing, send it back, and GameFly will send you the next available game on your list. You can support Rev3 Games and get a free 15-day trial by signing up at gamefly.com/Rev3Games.